Antiques. Random story. Not related to ghosts and a bit long. If you don't like it, then skip it. I just came back from a journey of more than 300 kilometers. Quite tired. I was supposed to take a shower and rest because I had to continue tomorrow. But there was a coincidence. Accidentally made me feel a bit strange, so I sat up to write this article to share with everyone to read. The thing is, just now, around 10 a.m. on Sunday, October 24th, 2021, when we arrived in Siem Reap, my brother and I stopped by to visit an old friend. He is the owner of a traditional restaurant here. We have known him since 1994 in a strange fate. I will tell everyone in another story. He is a Chinese Indian, Cham, and whose main job when he fell into our hands in 1994 was smuggling antiquities. Now he no longer does that job but has switched to the culinary business. We have not seen each other for a long time. The restaurant is big, has many private rooms, and is crowded with diners. But he did not invite us into the dining room but invited us to his private room on the 3rd floor. That is to show his affection for his close friends. The room is beautiful, private, made of precious wood from floor to ceiling. Even the amenities such as tables, chairs, cabinets and cigarette holders are all made of Pomu, Cam Lai, Gu, Tu Dan, Win Hong, and ivory. I was really overwhelmed because I knew the value of this room, if calculated in Vietnamese currency, must be hundreds of billions of dong. While eating and drinking, we confided in each other. The story wandered and accidentally turned back to his old job in the past, smuggling antiques. He is a mysterious person, a treasure trove of knowledge about antiques, spirituality and feng shui. Very good at Vietnamese and Thai, so we completely understand what he confides and shares. He has traveled everywhere, from high mountains to deep abysses, wild forests to vast seas, more than all of us combined, since the liberation a few years ago. I have a collection of about 10 Nokia 8800 phones, knowing that I like that phone line. In 2006 he gave me a Nokia 8800 Gold as a gift. It was a normal gold-plated phone like any other. It only had a slight difference. The two pieces of leather on the key cover and battery cover, back of the phone, were made of human skin. Not the skin of any animal. The origin of this phone is from Thailand, of a military officer. When he was hit by a mine and lost a leg, he asked the military doctor to keep the amputated leg and peel off the skin, then chemically treat it, make a sticker for the phone, and his gold Dupont lighter. Then, also from a predestined relationship, this phone came to my friend's hand, and he also commemorated me because of predestined relationship. When I met him, I did not pull the trigger. The second time was in 2007 when I visited him again. It was also very strange. That day it rained heavily for several days. Our car was quite seriously damaged. I had to call him for help. Over the phone he recognized me immediately, even though it was not the phone number I usually use. He laughed loudly and said, "You guys just stay there and rest. You don't have to fix the car anymore. I will send someone to pick you up and tow your car out. Go home and rest, but you are also bad. If you come here and your car doesn't break down, you won't come visit me." I was terrified, because in fact, I had no intention of visiting him, partly because of work, partly because his respect made me feel guilty. The reason he called me, "you," was because after the first meeting, I visited him unexpectedly without prior appointment. That time he wanted to accept me as a sworn brother. I agreed, not because he was rich, powerful, but because I felt this oath was very sincere when I was just a homeless person, dying without a burial place, with nothing in my hands. When I arrived at his house, at that time he was doing a very strong and extensive car business. The house was full of people living there with hundreds of expensive cars, still going into his private room to drink. He said slowly, I knew the youngest, me, would come to find me, turned to his wife and asked, "Did you see what he said?" The sister-in-law had a very serious face and said to me, 4 days ago, while sleeping at night, he suddenly woke up at 11:30 at night. His lifestyle is also very strange. He only sleeps from 9 to 10 p.m. until 2 to 3 a.m. then wakes up, he told me. Oot Viet came to visit. I was confused for a long time before I thought of me. That night when the brothers had gone down to the room below to rest, only the two of us were left. He unlocked the wooden altar room above and invited me up. After the two of us sat under the leopard skin right under the altar. He told me, "I have this tree. I want to give it to you. You have enough evil spirit to use it. But if you don't take it, it's okay. I won't be sad." Then he patted my shoulder and stood up. Went to the 2 rows of wooden shelves on both sides of the altar. Carefully used both hands to hold down a black wooden box. It was an old ebony box with many cracks and scratches. Inside was an old sword. The sword had a dull gray ivory hilt. It looked very ordinary. No patterns, no elaborate designs. I gently moved the sword out of the sheath. There was a strange shiver passing through. The sword was dull black, as if made of something other than metal. He stood up to light incense and burn incense, then knelt down carefully and pulled the sword out of the sheath. The sheath was also shiny black ebony, with 3 copper bands at the hilt, and the end of the sheath was wrapped in a ring about 10 centimeters long. The sword was black, Japanese sword-style bevel, slightly curved, exactly 77 centimeters long from hilt to tip. I measured later, with a very fishy smell. 2 deep grooves on the blade. It was a sword that was simply struck by hand, not by machine, and had a strange black color. He told me, "This is not an ordinary Japanese sword. An ordinary Japanese sword is 1.2 meters long. This was a sword of a Japanese officer who died in battle in Harbin." His old trading partners were so afraid of this sword that they had to beg him to take it away without paying a penny. They even had to thank him profusely when he took the sword away from their house. It was a sword forged and tempered with human blood. Blacksmiths usually temper steel after heating it red with salt water. But this sword is different. After heating it red, it is pierced through the prisoners, and continues to be heated and hammered, then pierced through the living prisoners. The dead are replaced by other prisoners, and so on until it is finished. A total of 47 people. There are 47 lines printed on the sword's spine. Why 47? Later, I learned about the Japanese story, 47 Ronin. Those who watch Google will understand. When finished, the sword was a dull black color, and gave off a terrible fishy smell. It was not like the rusty smell of iron and steel, but a fishy smell of something else. It was human blood. Later, in the antique smuggling world, word of mouth spread about those swords. It is said that exactly 47 swords were forged in total, and those swords had great value beyond the time value of the antique, but also spiritual value. The Chinese, the quickest in all tricks of making fake antiques, quickly produced swords that were exactly like that, both in shape and color, looked like the real thing. Many antique smugglers had to swallow their pride when spending a lot of money to buy those, met in Kai Na, swords with the hope of making a fortune, because no matter how they were faked, how similar they were, there was one detail that only the big guys in the antique smuggling world knew, which was how to test whether it was real or not. If they were smuggled, they could not bring it to places with machines to analyze the composition of metals, carbon, steel, etc. And even if they tested it, it would still be steel, not wood, because the real swords produced by the Japanese fascists had a feature that the counterfeiters could not do except to imitate the blacksmiths of the past. Piercing prisoners when they were working with the sword. That is, it sucked human blood. I tested it myself. When a drop of human blood fell on the blade of the sword, it immediately spread and seemed to soak into the wood. Not the steel. It was like blotting paper. Not stagnant or sticky on the steel surface like normal swords. Blood that dripped onto it did not need to be wiped off. It disappeared on its own. When shined under the electric light, I only saw a hazy brown layer and a little damp. I don't understand why it was like that, so I didn't dare to conclude anything. I only dared to tell what I saw with my own eyes. It was from these swords that in the 80s and 90s, many people sought to buy Japanese swords. They kept saying that Japanese swords were very precious, very good, very rare, and the Chinese scammers sold a lot of dry wood to amateurs. It sounded a bit like a pot of boiling water. This Japanese sword collection is exactly like the movement of collecting $2 coins. Everyone likes to collect, but few people understand the real problem. Ellipsis. When I pulled the sword out of its sheath, to be honest, I shivered. Even though at that time I didn't know its origin or history. The feeling was hard to describe when looking at this sword. It seemed to exude a terrible murderous aura. The night sky, the cold rain, but my sweat was pouring out. When I held it in my hand, my head was dizzy, and I felt hot air bursting inside me. My face was red, my eyes were wide open. Later my brother told me. But at that time there was no mirror to see my face. That sword was very light in my hand. After putting the sword back in its sheath, carefully wrapping a layer of red cloth around the sword box, he knelt down and I knelt down with him. He clasped his hands and muttered for a long time. Then threw the two ancient coins, the yin and yang, spinning for a long time and collapsing as if attracted by a magnet. Thuan. The two brothers closed the door. I carried the red cloth-wrapped sword box down to the room below like carrying the remains of a martyr. My feet were light, walking down each step. He confided to me that not everyone could own these swords because their murderous aura was very strong. Those with weak spirits could feel dizzy or weak when facing these swords. These were often treasures for sorcerers because when they were close to their swords, their dharma power increased very strongly. He said that if you only took it out to look at it, you absolutely must not take it out of its sheath during the day when there was sunlight. And there was one more thing, but it was taboo, so I was not allowed to say it. Hoping everyone would understand, after several years of preserving the sword as a souvenir he gave me, I went to his house, asked his permission to give the sword to a respected brother of mine in Vietnam. He agreed. Because I was too poor to have the ability to build a separate wooden altar room to keep that sword. Honestly, I was very sorry and felt guilty all the time, but according to his words, I said, it's not that I don't have a destiny, but there are many spiritual issues behind it. And when I can't do it completely, let someone else do it better. Antiques are like that. Coming to them is destiny. Owning them is also destiny. You can have a lot of money and have great knowledge of antiques. But not just because you like it. You can buy and sell it to own it. I say this. Many people may ridicule me as superstitious or nonsense. It's okay. Everyone has their own point of view. I also don't convince you to follow my point of view. Antiques. Antiques have souls. That soul is not like the soul of a human, but is even stronger and more mysterious. I feel that from many things that have happened when I own sacred antiques. I do not trade, do not search, hunt or rob, although I have the ability and conditions to do so. But often own precious antiques, for me personally. But for many people it is just trash. Has no value at all. When I cherish it not because it has material value, but cherish it for its value in time. It will bring me many surprises. Lucky and good surprises. My brother is very rich. He has a 2-story basement under the house. Modern design to display antiques. According to him, antiques should be placed underground, or in a separate worship room above. A wooden room or a brick room depending on the feng shui of each item. And he often burns incense in the rooms to things, with a table like an altar and to put glasses of white water. Some places to put incense burners. Some places to put incense sticks like a family altar. But antiques should not be displayed as if to show off for everyone to see. Not because they are afraid of being taken away, but it has a different meaning. There are items that bring bad luck to some people, but in the hands of others, they bring only luck. That is true. I have seen and believe. It depends on fate and the heart of each person. If you are ignorant about antique knowledge like me, you should not get involved in things like trading or collecting, because you may have enough money to buy more trouble right away. As for the strange coincidence, as I mentioned at the beginning of the article, when I met my brother again, we talked about random things and then turned to antiques when I got home. When I opened the IB message, I was startled to see a message from a friend of mine. Also in this group, I will not mention the name, asking about issues related to antiques. The things that my brother and I had just talked about before. You asked about how to spiritually clean antiques. You said you were new to it, so you didn't understand it clearly. But I'm sure that you must have quite a bit of knowledge about antiques. Although you're modest, so you say that amateurs or nouveau riche often ask different questions from you. Believe that antiques have spirituality. You must have known about that. In places where antiques are kept, the negative energy is often very strong. At night there are clanging sounds of weapons. Screams, cries, all of them. And then there are always strange phenomena. I myself have encountered it. When I walked down the stone steps at the famous Cambodian spirit temple Wat Phru in the dark and dim afternoon. The ruined temple stood in the middle of the wild forest. I was stunned when I saw 2 rows of soldiers holding shields and curved swords, standing on both sides with their heads bowed in silence. Vaguely, not only me but all 4 of my brothers saw it. The basement was even more terrifying. The Khmer voices were murmuring and murmuring as if hundreds of people were reading together. The sound of knocking was steady, even though the temple had been abandoned for thousands of years. Tree roots as big as a person's embrace, writhing like giant snakes covering everywhere. Then in my brother's storage room, there were always strange noises, like the sound of buffaloes breathing heavily, the sound of metal clanking and clanging, and headless ghosts crawling around like worms around the shelves of weapons and swords. The basement was very solid and modern with a system against humidity, mold, steam, and very clean. But when you went down at night, all kinds of smells rushed into your nose. The rotten smell of corpses, the fishy smell of blood, the smell of burnt flesh, the smell of old people, strong. It took a while to get used to it. Then there were objects or statues. When you turned them somewhere, the next night they would automatically turn back to their original position. The most frightening were the cursed, Eastern, and cursed, Western, objects. They often brought a creepy feeling when facing them. He showed me the camera footage of pens rolling back and forth, and the clock sometimes running backwards at night. The fan woven from eagle feathers looked like a bird flapping its wings, but it did not fall off the shelf. The most terrifying thing was a Cham dancer statue made from laterite, missing an arm and a third of its head. Sometimes it swayed violently but did not fall down. There are more strange stories that I will tell you when I have time. I have to go to work now. See you all next time.